Authentication, interview questions, and answers. Beginner means advanced. Introduction. Authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user, system, or application. Authentication is widely used for CAC, web applications, mobile apps, APIs, banking systems, cloud platforms, enterprise security. Authentication helps ensure: check, secure access, check, identity verification, check, account protection, check, system integrity. Common authentication technologies include JWT, Auth2, OpenID Connect, SAML. Session-based authentication, 1 to 20. Authentication basics. What is authentication? Process of verifying user identity. Authentication versus authorization. Authentication verifies identity. Authorization controls access. User authentication process. What is credential? Information proving identity. Common credentials? Check. Username, password, tokens, biometrics. What is password hashing? Converting passwords into irreversible hashes. Why hash passwords? Security. Prevent plaintext storage. Common hashing algorithms? Bcrypt, Argon2, PBKDF2. What is salting? Adding random data before hashing. Why use salt? Prevents rainbow table attacks. What is session? Server-side authenticated user state. What is session ID? Unique identifier for authenticated session. What is token-based authentication? Authentication using signed tokens. What is JWT? JSON Web Token, used for stateless authentication. JWT structure, header, payload, signature. JWT example, xxxx.yyyy.zzzz. Server does not store session state. What is stateful authentication? Server maintains user session state. What is multi-factor authentication? MFA. Authentication requiring multiple verification methods. Common MFA methods: OTP, authenticator apps, biometrics. 21 to 40. Sessions, cookies, and JWT. What is cookie? Small browser stored data. What is authentication cookie? Cookie storing session token data. What is HTTP-only cookie? Cookie inaccessible to JavaScript. Why use HTTP only? Check. Protection against XSS. What is secure cookie? Cookie sent only over HTTPS. What is same-site cookie? Restricts cross-site cookie usage. What is session fixation attack? Attacker forcing known session ID. What is session hijacking? Stealing authenticated session. What is CSRF? Cross-site request forgery attack. Check. CSRF tokens, same-site cookies. What is XSS? Cross-site scripting attack. How prevent XSS? Input sanitization, output encoding. What is JWT payload? Sub 123. What is JWT signature? Verifies token integrity. Why sign JWTs? Prevent tampering. What is token expiration? Limiting token validity duration. What is refresh token? Long-lived token for renewing access tokens. Access token versus refresh token. Access token grants access. Refresh token renews access. What is bearer token? Token sent in authorization header. Bearer token example. Authorization, bearer token 4170. OAuth2, OpenID Connect, and enterprise authentication. What is OAuth2? Authorization framework for delegated access. What problem does OAuth2 solve? Third-party secure access delegation. What is OpenID Connect? OIDC. Authentication layer on top of OAuth2. OAuth2 versus OIDC. OAuth2 handles authorization. OIDC adds authentication. Key. Authorization code. Client credentials. Key. Refresh token. What is authorization code flow? Secure OAuth2 flow for web apps. What is client credentials flow? Machine-to-machine authentication. What is redirect URI? OAuth callback endpoint. What is identity provider? IDP. System authenticating users. Common identity providers? Google, Microsoft, Okta. What is SSO? Single sign-on across systems. Benefits of SSO? Convenience. Centralized security. What is SAML? XML-based enterprise authentication protocol. SAML versus OAuth2? SAML mainly enterprise SSO. OAuth2 API authorization. What is LDAP? Directory Access Protocol. What is Active Directory? Microsoft Identity Directory Service. What is Federation? Sharing identities across organizations. What is API authentication? Verifying API consumers. Common API authentication methods. API keys, JWT, AOH2. What is API key? Unique identifier for API access. API key limitations, weaker security, difficult revocation. What is mutual TLS, MTLS? Client-server certificate authentication. What is certificate authentication? Identity verification using certificates. What is biometric authentication? Authentication using physical characteristics. Common biometrics? CUC, fingerprint, face recognition, iris scan. What is passwordless authentication? Authentication without passwords. What is WebAuthn? Modern passwordless authentication standard. Secure passwordless authentication standard. What is adaptive authentication? Authentication adjusting based on risk. What is risk-based authentication? Dynamic authentication based on user behavior context. 71 to 100. Advanced security and best practices. What is brute force attack? Repeated password guessing attempts. How prevent brute force attacks? Rate limiting, account lockout, CAPTCHA. What is CAPTCHA? Human verification challenge. What is credential stuffing? Using leaked passwords across systems. What is phishing? Trick users into revealing credentials. Temporarily disabling repeated failed logins. What is least privilege principle? Minimum required access only. What is zero trust security? Never trust automatically. Always verify. What is secret management? Secure storage of credentials secrets. Common secret managers? Check. HashiCorp Vault. AWS Secrets Manager. What is token revocation? Invalidating issued tokens. What is token introspection? Checking token validity status. What is replay attack? Reusing intercepted authentication data. How prevent replay attacks? Nonce, timestamps, short-lived tokens. What is nonce? One-time unique value. What is PKCE in OAuth 2? Security extension for public clients. What is authentication middleware? Component validating requests. JWT validation example. JWT parser.parse claims JWS token. Common authentication interview topics? C. JWT, JWOauth 2, JWS, sessions, cookies, MFA. Token leakage, insecure password storage, weak session management, best practices for authentication, hash passwords securely, use HTTPS, implement MFA. Why always use HTTPS? Clear encrypt credentials. /tokens. What is secure password policy? Question marks, strong passwords, expiration rules, complexity requirements. What is audit logging? Recording authentication events. What is authentication microservice? Dedicated, centralized authentication service. What is identity management? Managing users and permissions centrally. How to become strong in authentication. CUT. Build JWT OAuth systems. CUT. Study OWASP security risks. CUT. Practice secure token handling. Biggest authentication interview concept? Secure identity verification and session token management. Key authentication interview focus. JWT, OAuth 2, sessions, MFA, and authentication security. Why is authentication critical? Authentication protects systems, data, and users from unauthorized access. Final summary. Authentication interviews focus on: check. JWT and token authentication. Check. Sessions and cookies. Check. OAuth 2 and OpenID Connect. Check. MFA and SSO. Check. Password hashing and salting. Check. Authentication security. Check. API authentication. Enterprise identity management. Key idea. Strong developers understand secure identity verification, token/session management, OAuth flows, and authentication best practices for scalable, secure systems.